Zeth clung to the salvaged observation drone, his 8 nimble fingers finding precarious purchase on its sensor arrays. The shattered remnants of the battlefield stretched below, a testament to the clashing forces that continuously ravaged his people's once peaceful world. Now they were mere scavengers, their survival dependent on gleaning technology from the aftermath of these titans' struggle. It wasn't the Krellian warships, with their predatory elegance, that made his heart shiver with dread. Their ruthlessness was predictable, a constant in this war-torn reality. No, it was the echoes of the other force, the humans of the Federation. Whispers of their undead soldiers, their defiance of death itself, sent chills throughout his body. The drone flickered to life, the scavenged tech a gamble that always carried a jolt of fear. What he saw made his insides clench. The footage wasn't the usual display of overwhelming firepower or tactical brilliance. It was the aftermath, broken bodies of Federation troops, and the unnatural way their wounds mended right before his eyes. Rumours of some resurrection project, dismissed as mere wartime propaganda, now twisted into shocking reality. These soldiers, their eyes burning with an unsettling intensity, rose again. He watched as one limped back into the fray, a fractured leg mended into a grotesque functional shape. This wasn't war anymore, it was a perversion of the natural order. Zeth's people were adept at adaptation, at maintaining an existence in the shadows. Yet this? It was madness. His people understood the hunger for resources and the drive to survive. But the humans' relentless defiance of death itself felt like an entirely different sort of madness. One that might consume them, and any unfortunate enough to be caught in the path of its destruction. His people knew balance, the delicate cycle of life and death that sustained their world. The Galactic Federation, it seemed, tipped the scales into a terrifying unknown. They were no longer just another warring faction to evade, but a force that might bring an unnatural imbalance to his world. A darkness that lingered long after the battle moved on. A decision, sharp as the shard of metal he used for cutting wires, formed in his mind. To survive, they needed more than salvaged technology and the ability to remain unseen. The usual contacts, those who bartered for both Krellian and Federation scraps, wouldn't do. No, this knowledge was too dangerous to remain within the usual channels. The old tales whispered of a hidden network, the Shadow Weavers, who traded in information instead of mere goods. They were the lifeline of the desperate, found in the shadowy spaces where forgotten species clung to existence. His gamble was that they might understand the gravity of what he'd witnessed. The humans, once seen as a potential bulwark against the Krellians, now felt like a gathering storm threatening to engulf them all. Finding the Shadow Weavers was, as expected, a dance with ghosts and rumours. The usual bartering hubs, where his people acquired the scraps to rebuild their meagre civilization, yielded only fragments. A whispered name, an astronomical reference point known only to star chart historians, and a chilling phrase repeated like a curse. Where the past and future collide. His journey led him to an unremarkable planetoid, its barren surface scarred with craters so ancient they seemed like a natural feature. The salvaged sensor array crackled with interference. It was this desolate place that held the key. Doubt gnawed at him as he ventured into a hidden cave system, the drone hovering above, its weak light the only guide. The deeper he delved, the less natural the tunnels felt. Smooth walls, faintly luminescent markings not born of geology, whispered of a vanished civilization. And then, the chamber. It was vast, the domed ceiling lost in darkness. Yet, it wasn't the space that made him recoil, but the figure seated upon a crudely assembled throne of salvaged tech. It wasn't the form that was truly alien, or the patchwork exoskeleton cobbled together from the detritus of countless species. No, it was the eyes. They held the weary wisdom of countless millennia, flickering with an intelligence at odds with the scavenged throne. "You bring a curious offering, Zeth of the Aluvatus," a voice crackled, synthesized, yet carrying an undercurrent of dry humor. "They speak of your people's ingenuity, but this..." The Shadow Weaver gestured to the projected images of the Lazarus Resurrection Project in action. The horrifying spectacle was met with a chilling silence. "I'd heard whispers," the Shadow Weaver finally admitted. "Warped echoes of a species twisting the very fabric of existence. Your confirmation is troubling." Zeth felt a desperate hope ignite. This ancient being, whatever its origins, saw the same threat. He spoke then, words honed in the harsh bartering grounds, laced with the urgency of facing extinction. He described his world, the delicate balance the Aluvatus had maintained, and the encroaching dread of the Federation's monstrous soldiers. The Shadow Weaver remained unreadable. "Tell me, Zeth, what do you want? Weapons to fight back? Sanctuary? These conflicts of yours, they are the thrashings of mayflies against the unyielding storm." A bitter frustration burned in Zeth. This was the cynicism born of a lifespan that eclipsed civilizations. "Knowledge, then," he countered. "Tell me if this madness has ever been seen before. Tell me how to warn others." The Shadow Weaver shifted, ancient machinery whirring in protest. And then it spoke, a name echoing in that desolate chamber, a name whispered in old Aluvatus legends as a destroyer of worlds. "The Kaldathi," it breathed. They were relentless. Only by shattering their own connection to what they called the lattice were they finally defeated. The Shadow Weaver stared at the projections. "You're humans. They echo a similar madness." Zeth left that desolate planetoid not with a simple solution, but with a burden. The Kaldathi, mythical harbingers of doom, was that the path the Federation hurtled down? He carried whispers of a mysterious lattice, and the chilling notion that true defeat might mean the Galactic Federation shattering itself from within. This was a weapon of knowledge, a twisted sort of hope for those caught in the wake of a war that had transcended mere conquest. The Shadow Weavers, it seemed, traded in the currency of desperation, and now he was their newest and most unwilling client. Returning to his people was an exercise in controlled despair. He couldn't share the full burden of his knowledge about the ancient destroyers. The hint that the Federation's path led to a galaxy-wide cataclysm they couldn't even comprehend. Panic would lead to rash actions, a suicidal defiance that would only paint a target on their backs. Instead, he spoke of shifting tides and the unpredictable nature of war. The Federation, he emphasized, was a force focused inward, their unnerving experiments consuming their attention and their ambition blinding them to the wider galaxy. This was a narrow path to navigate. The Aluvatus needed to become even more adept at evasion, ghosting through the chaos unnoticed. The salvage tech, usually greeted with a tinkerer's enthusiasm, now carried an undercurrent of dread. His findings from the Shadow Weaver sparked both fear and a grim determination. There would be no more repurposing of Federation weaponry, no attempts to mimic their technology. Their survival was dependent on making themselves utterly unremarkable to this malevolent force. Zeth became an unwilling prophet, shaping his people's desperation into meticulously planned disappearances. Settlements were carefully dismantled, leaving scant traces. Travel between salvaged outposts became an exercise in untraceable routes and deceptive signals. Every scrap of Federation tech was either reverse-engineered into unrecognizable forms or carefully jettisoned into the depths of space. Meanwhile, a select few, the most brilliant minds of his people, pored over the riddle of the Shadow Weaver's knowledge. The Kaldathi, the Lattice, were they clues or dead ends? Their limited resources strained against the enormity of the task. The knowledge gain was like pouring a single drop of hope into a poisoned ocean. He made another dangerous gamble, a selective contact with the Ferengi scavenging clan. Known for their ruthlessness and singular focus on profit, they were the sort of opportunistic parasites who thrived on the edges of any conflict. Zeth presented them with a deceptively simple artifact and a planted rumor. It was a modified Federation datapad, containing a hint of the Lazarus Project's true horror, disguised as a wild theory, an outlandish possibility, and something to make those greedy eyes gleam. True to his prediction, the Ferengi dismissed the information as a bargaining tactic, a ploy for better trading arrangements. But the seed was sown. Greed had a way of fueling its own paranoia. They might take the rumor, twist it, and spread it. A whisper of doubt aimed right at the heart of the Federation's potential clients. Others might follow suit, a ripple effect born from his act of calculated desperation. The Aluvatus were no warriors, no scientists destined to unravel ancient mysteries. They were survivors, their very existence a testament to adaptability. Yet, in the shadow of the Federation's tainted evolution, they were forced to fight a different kind of war, one waged with whispers, calculated disappearances, and the manipulation of those driven by greed instead of valor. It was a desperate gamble, and perhaps a doomed one. But in a galaxy spiraling towards an unnatural conflict, it was their only chance to remain untouched by the darkness. Change was a subtle thing in the grand scheme of interstellar conflict. Battles raged, territories changed hands, alliances shifted on a monumental scale. Yet amidst this cosmic churn, Zeth detected a tremor resonating with his own, carefully orchestrated manipulations. The trickle of information from his Ferengi contact was sparse, coloured by the Ferengi's own hunger for profit. But it revealed a pattern, a thread of disquiet woven amidst the grand tapestry of conflict. Rumour, that insidious weapon, was spreading faster and taking hold with deeper unease than Zeth had dared hope. The Federation's seemingly unlimited supply of troops, their relentless ability to bounce back from devastating losses, wasn't being hailed as tactical genius. Rumours of unnatural practices clung to their victories like a poisonous miasma. It was on backwater space stations, hubs of illicit trade far from the prying eyes of powerful factions, that the sentiment crystallized. Minor species, long accustomed to being pawns in the machinations of greater powers, now hesitated when approached by Galactic Federation recruiters. Those dealing in illicit tech found urgent maintenance issues when confronted with potential Federation contracts. Even Krellian raiding parties, usually brazen in their attacks on vulnerable outposts, displayed an unusual caution, as if uncertain of the forces they might now encounter. Zeth witnessed the impact of this shift on his own world. The Aluvatus had always been overlooked, dismissed as scavengers beneath the notice of warring titans. Now, that obscurity became their greatest shield. Eyes that had previously swept over their unassuming planet with disinterest began to turn elsewhere. The Federation, fueled by the insatiable hunger of the Lazarus Resurrection Project, had inadvertently created space for his people to simply, quietly persist. Yet he carried no illusions of true victory. Their existence remained precarious, the merest breath away from annihilation, should the Federation cast its terrible gaze in their direction. And the rumours, while effective, were a double-edged sword. Desperation bred not just allies, but opportunists. A transmission, intercepted from a frequency usually reserved for the dregs of galactic society, hammered home his fear. A shadowed figure, their face obscured, offered a bounty open to those with a taste for the unique. The prize: intact Federation weaponry, and perhaps even pertinent data regarding these so-called resurrected soldiers. There were forces in this galaxy that recognized the unnatural for what it was, not out of morality, but from a cold predatory instinct. In its single-minded pursuit of victory, the Federation might have awakened echoes of something far older and more dangerous. The Kaldathi, the Lattice. The Shadow Weaver's words were a chilling premonition. Zeth's war, the Aluvatus War, had only just begun. Their conflict now wasn't merely against a conquering empire, nor the spread of unnatural science. It was a battle against becoming noticed at all, against tempting the gaze of those seeking to exploit the desperation they had helped unleash upon the galaxy.